Good evening, everybody. For anybody who doesn't know me or hasn't run into me once before, I'm Ron Blaisdell. I'm the Division Chief for Youth Programs. I am pleased to have everyone here with us tonight. We're going to be focusing on some, I think, critical training because always seems to be questions on this topic. So we're going to kind of do that tonight. I hope that way we can answer a lot of things right off the bat without having to worry about not getting the information out there again. So, safety information, I presume that everyone here knows where the proper exits are in their own home or wherever you might be, and that you know where the fire safety equipment is. And if not, I sure hope you have some. But always remember to check the dates. I mean, for everyone here who does RBS, looking at the date on your fire extinguisher should seem logical, right? Oh, Bruce has got it beside him. Ooh, there we go. Bruce is really prepared. But make sure it's not expired. It's always fun. I actually had one that hung in my garage for years. It was actually put up there by my father-in-law, and I realized when we were moving that it had actually expired about 10 years earlier, but it was still holding a full charge. So it wasn't a great, it was in the garage. So, not one of those spots. For him, having a fire extinguisher in the garage was exceedingly important. The man played with fire a lot. So, what can I say? I would ask everybody if you're not going to be on mute while we're doing the actual session itself, that you please mute your cell phones. Um, rings that fall in always make it a little bit more exciting, I think, sometimes. So just we're gonna kind of keep questions open and flowing. We're going to do a little bit of back and forth tonight. Going to do something a little different than we've done in the past. So after each section, we'll be doing some questions. We'll do questions again at the end. If there's something that's really off topic, I have a nice piece of paper right here, so I can write down parking lot questions that might come up, and we'll address those at the end of the meeting. So I just want to make sure that we know really what we're going to be doing tonight. So I really hope that by tonight's training, you could kind of figure out, um, really how to do your job better as a DSO. Um, there are two things that I've been saying over this past, well, really since the beginning of the year, um, about how I want us to function going forward. And so we're going to go over those tonight as well. And it's really kind of falls in two big categories, right? It belongs into chartering new Sea Scout ships, managing existing Sea Scout ships that you have and make sure that they don't run away, right? And keeping a tab on our involvement with all the other Sea Scout ships that are not necessarily auxiliary sponsored. Okay. So kind of a three-pronged approach, but I think that's kind of a simple way that we're just going to talk about this tonight. I sent you guys out. I sent everybody out, I should say. Probably missed you, Vic. But I sent you the four-step guide to chartering a ship. That guide has been updated with some recent information, stuff that I've just gotten from councils. So it's brand new. It's not stale. While the date says that it was originally written in 2022, which it was, if you ever bother to look at the metadata that's in the Word document, you'll see that I actually keep a running version on it so that I know where we are with that particular document without necessarily worrying about the document itself. But I like to try to start things off by doing a video. So let's see here. See if we can get it to work tonight. Okay. 1, 3, 2. There it is. Okay. Share sound. Always good to say share sound, by the way, if you ever use it. Okay. Oops. There we are. Hopefully you've all seen this, but we'll just do this real quick.
Hello, my name is Bruce Johnson, and I'll be walking you through the process for obtaining a Coast Guard charter for a new auxiliary chartered Sea Scout ship. This will provide your flotilla or division with a simple step-by-step guide for requesting a Coast Guard charter that accompanies your BSA charter from Scouting America. The Coast Guard allows auxiliary flotillas and divisions to organize and charter Sea Scout units, which are called Sea Scout ships. Each flotilla and division is allowed to charter one Sea Scout ship. Scouting America, formerly known as the Boy Scouts of America, has a new unit application process that every local Scout Council knows how to handle. They'll be happy to help you with this. At the end of that process, the council issues a BSA charter that must be renewed every 12 months. That renewal process is known as rechartering. A BSA ship charter is essentially a franchise agreement between the chartered organization, like your flotilla or division, and the local Scout Council. In it, the chartered organization agrees to follow BSA organization and program standards, provide adult leadership, and provide or arrange for a meeting place. The ship itself isn't a legal entity, but your flotilla or division can make that commitment. Nationally, about 75% of ships are chartered to churches and schools, with the remainder being nautical organizations like yacht clubs, power squadrons, and Coast Guard auxiliary flotillas. Unlike Sea Scout ships that are chartered to other organizations, auxiliary chartered ships must also apply to the Coast Guard for a charter. This charter is issued by your district's Director of Auxiliary, or DIROX. Unlike the BSA issued charter, the Coast Guard charter is issued once and does not need to be renewed each year. So, to be clear, if your flotilla or division wants to operate a Sea Scout ship, you apply to your local Scout Council to receive a BSA charter, and you apply to your district's DIROX for a Coast Guard charter. If you haven't already done so, download copies of the AuxScout Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP, and the checklist for organizing a new Sea Scout ship. These will give you the information you need to know to follow the Coast Guard's rules for working with the Sea Scouts. They will also provide you with lots of resources for getting your ship up and running. All the resources you need are on the AuxScout website at auxscout.com. Download a copy of the suggested format for a flotilla or division requesting permission to charter a Sea Scout ship. Follow the instructions in this file and fill in the names of the auxiliaries, the adult volunteers, and Sea Scout youth. Confirm that all of the auxiliaries who are required to have completed BSA's youth protection training have already done so, and that their completion certificate has been entered into AuxData 2 by your division's IS staff officer. If the YPT completion certificate hasn't been entered into AuxData yet, attach a copy of the PDF completion certificate to the charter request. Once you've done this, save the file as a Microsoft Word document file. Once you've saved the charter request as a document file, attach it to an email. The routing for the email is from your flotilla commander to your division commander. The division commander will endorse the request and forward it to the district commodore. The district commodore will, in turn, endorse the request and send it on to your district director of auxiliary, or DIROX. It is recommended that your flotilla commander's email to your division commander include this routing information. Once your DIROX has the charter request, he or she will issue the Coast Guard charter. Some DIROXs will attend a formal chartering ceremony, but they're not required to do so. As a courtesy, you should invite your DIROX, your district commodore, your division commander, and your flotilla commander. Holding the charter ceremony in conjunction with a flotilla meeting is particularly fitting. Once you've received your BSA and Coast Guard charters, commence Sea Scout activities. A boater safety class is a great way to start, and it's an advancement requirement for the Sea Scouts. Make training as hands-on as you can. The youth who join Sea Scouts are motivated. Many are taking advanced and AP classes in high school, dual credit classes, and are involved in various high school extracurricular programs such as sports, band, orchestra, theater, chorus, and robotics. They do not want to follow their packed school day with more classroom lectures at night. Make sure to balance training with fun activities to keep the youth engaged. Here's a list of some resources to help you get started. You may want to stop the video here so that you can copy down these URLs. Good luck! If you have questions, please contact the Auxiliaries Youth Programs Division. They'll be happy to help you.
Nice, short, 7.5 minute video. Simple to follow. Only 105 things can possibly go wrong while you're trying to follow it. For those of us who've been on the front line and actually tried to do that before. So what I like to do is if you have your 4-step guide that I sent out to you earlier, if you would pull that up, I'll share mine just so you have something to take a look at. There we go. Let me make sure I grab the right one. Okay. Did everybody see the document? Okay.
Ron, it's very blurry.
Very blurry. Okay.
Yes. Very
All right.
blurry.
Well, let's see if I slide it over here. Of course, it's going to do something goofy to me, but I'm going to stop sharing it. I'm going to reshare it.
Better. That
Just
got better
maybe-
just as you cloned it off.
Right. It was
Well, of course it did. Really the way it works. Okay. Yeah. Some reason, I don't know why, it says my screen sharing is paused, which worries me a little bit. Is it still really blurry?
we're not seeing it all.
Not
Oh, you're not
seeing
seeing it
no.
all. Okay.
It's
Well,
still the blank started screen sharing.
and then we immediately fall back and we say, we'll do it a different way then. What the heck? I like being flexible, so no big deal. Okay. At the very beginning, step 1 talks about really resources for you to take a look at to begin with, right? There's the new unit organization kit, which is on the Sea Scout website. It is on the BSA website, or Scouting America website. Some of us don't call it BSA, what can I say? And then you also want the how to organize a Sea Scout ship from the Sea Scout website. Those are 2 really handy guides you want to have with you. We have several videos on our YouTube channel. You just saw one of them. How to start a Sea Scout ship. There's another one is best practices for an open house, which, considering some people tell me about how bad their open houses are, that's probably something more people should be paying attention to. And
Ron,
then,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you trying to show it again?
no, I'm not showing it. I
Oh,
said I'm
well,
just gonna talk it, so. if we're
because
talking
it
about
was
stuff,
okay right before you turned it off again. It was looking better.
Of course it was.
Okay. So I thought, well, maybe you do want to put it up.
Now I'll try it again. Oh, wait a minute. Bruce is going to try to share it. Okay, there we go. Bruce is doing a lot better than mine. Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
This is why you have co-hosts. Uh, so I was talking about the videos, which are right there on the second bullet point, or third bullet point that you see in step one, how to start a Sea Scout ship, best practices for planning a Sea Scout open house, and best practices for recruiting Sea Scouts. These are all really good videos. They're not very long, but they do help a great deal when you're trying to find a lot of information at one time. So I encourage you to take a look at those. Um, the next thing really is we go into the whole process of this idea that we want to do is really kind of centered more around who can help you. I mean, are there people at the local council that you can be working with? I know there are. They're called district executives. They should be more than willing to help you because, hey, it's a new unit. Sometimes they're a little standoffish, but hey, you become friends with them, things like that, and they're very, very good with that information. If you happen to be working and want to work with some of the other folks that are out there, Steve Stevens, who's part of the National Sea Scout Committee, he's always happy to provide you with a Sea Scout contact, and Tom Truckney as well. And if you decide that your flotilla really wants to sponsor one, you've got really three basic steps you need to go through. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. You make sure that you have enough, you recruit it all. Okay, and I don't necessarily mean just auxiliaries. You want people who are involved with the boating community in the area. Maybe you want to use other adults who are active in scouting in the area. Those are always handy because they have a good feeling for scouting and they know how the program works. And then you need to start with the whole concept of recruiting youth. Unless you're adopting a unit, that can be more of a challenge because this is where the open houses come into play. And open houses are good things to have even for regular units on a fairly consistent basis because you want your Sea Scouts really to be the ones who are recruiting all your new members. It really isn't up to the skipper, it's up to the committee chair. It's not up to anyone else. It's really up to the youth to decide they want to include additional youth in the ship. And that's what you want. Most Sea Scout ships, by the way, last a very long time. The minimum is usually about 5 years. Many of them have lasted. We've got one that says it's been around for 100 years right now. I know several that are over 50 years in how long they've been around. So, I mean, there is the ability to have that type of give and take with that information. But, you want to make sure that you are getting out in front of people, whether they're working with you in a public affairs booth, which is a great way of doing things, by the way. Our Sea Scout ship that my flotilla is sponsoring, we happen to go with us to the Detroit Boat Show, and they now have over 22 members. They've picked up six since the Detroit Boat Show in February, January and February. So they've done real well with that, and they brought a lot of traffic to the booth as well, and people were there to talk to them, not just talk to the old guys standing around the blue uniforms, the other blue uniforms, I should say. Just out of curiosity, let's see here. Pat, what recruiting tips have you been able to use?
The biggest thing is, well, one of the things we're doing right now is we are targeting outgoing eighth graders. In a month from now, they're all going to be eligible to join your Sea Scout ship. We found that getting into the high schools is difficult in many cases, but getting into a middle school is quite easy. As a matter of fact, two of our middle schools actually called us and asked if we do a career day. And we went down there and set up a Coast Guard auxiliary / Sea Scout space for them. Another great thing is if your high schools will not let you get into the high schools, they will let you set up a table at a football game. And we've got that set up for the fall to actually set up like a little sunfish sailboat and a table for Sea Scout recruiting, and just hang out at the football game.
I like
That's-
it. Anybody else have some ideas? Things that'll work for them? Okay, we'll move on. There is basically two very important pieces of paper and a bunch of little pieces of paper you need if you're starting a new Sea Scout ship. That's really the most important is the new unit application, which, by the way, even if you're adopting an existing ship, it seems like the councils want you to fill that out all over again. Never quite figured out why, but they do. They say it's the only way they get executive officer information. I said, oh, okay. So the new unit application and the charter partner agreement. Okay, now I can tell you we prefer for everyone to use the 2021 charter partner agreement. The 2021 charter partner agreement does not have the clause in it that states that the charter partner must be willing to use their EIN to give to the youth to set up a checking or drinking account. And for anybody who studied financial policy and the auxiliary knows why we don't necessarily like that idea. However, they just came out with another new form this week, another new annual charter agreement form. I was so happy to see yet another one. And that clause is still in there. If you end up, because the council insists that you sign the new form, what you can do is you can work with the ship, with the adults and the committee chair, whomever, treasurer, and help them get an EIN for their ship. That's really the way that works best. Because since we can't share our EINs, helping them get an EIN works out very, very well. I know there's several leaders that I've run into who said, wow, my charter partner is always giving me their EIN. Well, I can tell you that's not true, because that means you never had a Methodist church, a Roman Catholic church, number of Masonic bodies, they don't give up their EIN. It's simple. They have the same type of financial policies that we have. So consequently, I always kind of shake a little bit when I hear people say, oh, we've always done it that way. I keep going, yeah, okay. So those are two really critically important pieces of paper that you're going to have to fill out. The new unit application actually requires the information of the executive officer on it. The charter partner agreement is where the chartered organization representative will fill out most of their information on, other than on their application. The chartered organization representative, if it's a flotilla, is normally your FSOAS. Unless there's somebody else in the flotilla who really wants to do that job. A vice flotilla commander or whatever. So the okay, it's sending me questions. So you still end up doing that same paperwork, but that's okay. It's something we can always work with. But it is one of those things where you gotta make sure you know what paperwork you need to get done for your council and how you can help the ship in case they insist on using a newer form. Michigan Crossroads Council insisted on us using the new form for ship one. And so I had a conversation with the committee chair and I said, you guys already have bank accounts because we're adopting this ship. And they said, yes, that is true. I said, so then it doesn't matter what this says. She said, that's right, it doesn't. So Always nice to have a committee chair who will agree with you when you're talking. So, yes. Wow. The other thing that you might have if you are adopting an existing ship is a third piece of paper that is not official from what I can tell in the BSA. I cannot find it anywhere on scouting.org, in any location whatsoever. But there is a form that in general parlance is referred to as the adoption document. Basically, it is in a form that the new charter partner signs indicating that they are taking over the unit, and the current charter partner indicates that, yes, they know the unit's going away. That's really all it is, to tell you truthfully. There's a lot of other verbiage on there, but that's really all the form is about. So you might run into that form, just so you know, if you're going to adopt another ship, okay? And then, of course, you have the adult applications and you have the youth applications. You have to have a minimum of 5 adult applications. That is required as a minimum. You can get away with the chartered organization representative and the committee chair being the same person, not recommended, to tell you truthfully, because that consolidates 2 of what we call the key 3 in a unit down to 1 person, which is kind of silly. So I don't recommend that. But then you have to have a skipper, you have to have the charter org rep, you have to have the committee chair and 2 committee members. Believe it or not, you do not have to have a mate. Like you have an assistant scoutmaster as a requirement for a troop. You don't have that with the Sea Scout chair. You do not have to have a mate. Okay. And then you need to have 5 youth. Okay. And they should be at least 13 years of age and who have completed the 8th grade. The other thing that you will need to use when you turn all this good stuff in is you will, other than the payment for the adult and youth fees, which everybody takes care of their own, you do have to pay a $100 charter fee to the council. Best I can tell, everywhere that fee is $100 right now. And if you're in an odd state, you might end up with other criminal information that has to be done, like Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania has their own rules, as does California. So there are a couple of states out there that need some extra things as well. Anthony.
Is the 3 unit or 3 youth, 3 adult, quote unquote, promotions, is that expired or is that still in effect? Do you know?
As far as I know, it has not expired.
Okay.
But I still, if you can get 5 youth, get 5 youth instead and 5 adults. I mean, that takes the council, because I have run into people who said that, hey, our council's not allowing us. And I said, okay, your council's not allowing it. That's, something for us to know. So, but, it's with a national program. National put it out. That means every council should be supporting the program. Doesn't mean they all are. Councils are independent, as I always like to say, independent franchisees of the organization sometimes, or at least so it seems. So, it's hard to say, like I said, because we've run into this a couple of times now, where we've run into this problem where people wanted to do the 3x3, as I refer to it, and it was not being accepted.
Okay.
Hey, Ron,
Thank you.
I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Where exactly does it mention the charter fee? Because it's not in the new unit application.
Nope.
Where is it?
It is typically a council fee. So I had heard at one time that Western Los Angeles Area Council was actually charging a $200 fee. But they have since rescinded that. They were the only one I knew that was charging anything other than $100, which is pretty much the standard.
Now, my question, I have a flotilla commander that was surprised to learn about the fee and that
Okay.
it's an annual fee. And there's already reluctance to
Yeah.
jump in. So, I mean, I'm fighting a lot of battles. That's just one of them. But I've been scouring everything I can find, and I see it's mentioned here and there, and you know that you have to pay,
Hmm.
but I don't. Like I said, it even talks about on the new and renewal charter agreement talks about the BSA providing insurance, and from what I understand, that's pretty much what the $100 goes towards
No,
is
actually not.
insurance. No or yes?
I wish that was true. It's not.
Oh, that's what
That's
I.
that's those
Okay,
very expensive registration fees people are paying in councils right now. Go for that insurance.
so where? How do I? Where do you present a flotilla commander? You did I understand that comes from the council?
It is a council fee, but you can actually find it in the new unit application.
Mm,
I know this only because I just filled one out.
And Ron, he was just, Mark was just mentioning an annual recharter fee. I know that there's an annual re-registration fee for all members. Is there a recharter fee as well?
There is.
Hmm, okay.
That's actually been one of our points that we're trying to get across to when we're looking at grants that we can use to help reimburse flotillas and divisions for that. Has been the
yeah, so
fact that
I've got the annual council unit registration agreement, and
Mhm.
it's not in there either. Like I
Ah,
said, you know, I'm kind of the, somebody says, where's it written? Show me.
right.
And I don't have that.
I will have to look and see what I can find for you. I could have swore my copy of the new unit app had it, but if it's not there, I will go dig it up for you. Okay, let me put that on
That
my list.
good. Okay. These Zoom meetings are really great because they're tailor made for me because I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I watched the video before
Yep.
uh, the meeting and watched it again. And I noticed the first time I watched it, Bruce said that the charter organization, the text on the PowerPoint said approve adult leadership. And he said
Right.
provide. And I was looking for a little more clarification on that.
Well, the chartered organization representative, that person I mentioned earlier, they are the very first line of defense in the youth protection policy of the VSA. So if it's the FSOAS who's going to be the COR, or if it's some other officer in the flotilla that's going to be the COR, then they are actually the one who checks every adult's application, their references and everything else to make sure that they're a good person to be working with you. So in some respects, both answers are correct because we actually do approve all the adults.
Well, actually, just for clarification, the Boy Scouts would do that, right, with their
The
application.
Boy Scout do some, there's two steps to the process. So the COR gets an application from an adult. Okay. I look
Right.
at the adult application and there should be some names of references there. As the COR, my job is to make sure that I reach out to all those references, which are probably canned folks anyway who are going to give a good reference. I hate to say that, but I'm a commissioner for too many years, so I know it's true. But it's still my job as the COR have done my due diligence to make sure that anybody who applies to be an adult leader is a good person to have with our youth. Okay.
So, yeah, you're talking interviews and all that. You're the first line of defense is
Yep.
what I think you're saying. But
Yep.
I guess for the clarification part is if they get past you, the
Hmm.
COR,
Yep.
then the
The BSA
application,
does a whole nother background check.
then it goes to the Boy Scouts,
Right.
the council to do the background check part.
Actually, it's not the council that does the background. They have a third-party agency that does the background checks for them. All they do is put the information into the system. And then they get their reports back from the third-party agency.
Is that what the auxiliary does for new members? Or do we,
I believe it is. I don't know that question because I'm not an HR person, so I don't know. Sorry.
you know, I used to be a fingerprint technician a
Oh,
long
okay.
time ago.
There
Is
you
why
go.
I was
Back when we did
asking.
that stuff too, right? There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the BSA actually, the Scouting America actually does have a background check that is conducted by a third-party company. And I have had situations where, for various reasons, adults have, maybe they have a DUI conviction. Okay. And that comes back on their background check, or, any number of different things that might come back. And as it goes back to the COR, okay. And it's up to the COR to make a determination of whether or not this person is going to be good to work with their youth or not.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
The last question, and maybe I'm getting ahead, even though I've
Okay.
gone through I'm sorry to take up so much time.
That's
Last
okay.
question, because that's why we're here, I think.
Yeah.
As you're going through this, and I've read this, but is there somewhere else that I'm referring to level 1 and level 2
Yeah.
engagement?
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen a lot on that. And that's my final question. I'll hit my mutes. Thank you so much.
Okay. Um, engagement really is when that's a separate topic for tonight's meeting. So hang on, we'll get to that a little bit later. I promise. So
Well,
that is on my list for tonight. So
Ron, you understand he's asking about something that is unique to his district. It is not present in any other district. D13 has a level 1 and level 2 engagement concept that no other district uses.
actually, I believe that engagement concept has been done away with by the current DCO. I think.
That's
So
helpful. That was my question. Because I
talk
know
to your
there's,
DCO, but I think he took care of that already.
yeah, I understand districts have
Yep.
some movement where they can do some things. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's all. Great.
Okay.
That helps
Yeah,
so
I
much.
forgot about the engagement, Bruce. Thank you. I forgot B13 and engagement. That's right. Sorry. Oh, well, what can I say? So, we talked about all the paperwork here, the new unit agreement, the adult apps, the youth apps, etc. That's not where we end this at, because once you finally get your charter back from Scouting America, then you get to do it one more time for the Coast Guard. Okay. So there is we actually put a standardized form. It's actually 4.1. If you're looking at the document that you're looking at right now, that just as simple. It goes through and it says, based upon what you see in the SOP, by the way, it says, does the flotilla commander or division commander, whoever the sponsor is, do they have youth protection training? If so, is it in Data 2? If not, attach a certificate. Okay, pretty simple. Same with the vice division commander, vice flotilla commander, whoever the sponsoring body is, the FSO-HR, the FSO-MT, the FSO-OP, and the FSO-AS. Okay, so all of those folks, 6 in total, 6, need to have an active youth protection training. Okay, youth protection training currently takes about an hour to complete. It is a 100% online training, and it's good at the moment for 2 years. And I say that because at some point this year, I expect they're going to release the new youth protection training. When they do the new youth protection training, they will actually be only good for 1 year. And that will affect us too, because all of us who've taken youth protection training will end up starting to take it on a regular basis. There are some councils today that currently require that. But now this will be a national requirement. And the new training, which I'm happy to say, will not be the same training that you retake every single year. It's going to be a new training, which makes it a whole lot better. There's such a gamut of things that are part of the youth protection landscape, and really understanding all of that and the various things that are involved really make the job of working with youth much better for you, much better for the youth. So, it is a whole lot easier once you've got that stuff going. So if it's your flotilla, you're going to send this request, and you can see there in 4.1 that we have this little layout, and your flotilla commander can send this off to your division commander. Your division commander, based on the chain of leadership and management in your division or your district. Sorry, I say that because it's a little different sometimes. They, it may go from your division to your DCAP. It may go from your division straight to your DCO. In my division or in my district, it goes to my DCAP and then to my chief of staff and then to my DCO and then to Duroc. So it gets kind of convoluted after a while. But it is one of those things that that you need to know, and you just kind of got to know how your district wants to operate with that. Having a conversation with your DCO on that topic is a good thing to do. You're all DSO officers, you're all district staff officers or ADSOs in either case. But at the same time, being able to reach out and say, hey, if we're going to get a ship, how do you want me to make sure the paperwork goes when we have to submit for a Coast Guard charter? So you've got to sit on to Duroc when it's all done. Who does it need to go through? Just ask the question. That's how I found out in ours that we had more stops than everybody else. Always is fun when you have more stops than everybody else. But and in the case of D13, they had lots more stops, it seems. One of those really kind of fun things that they ran into. But it's, this is simple. It's a form. You just take it, you put it in there. Okay. If it's a division, you make sure you're talking to your division folks. If it's a flotilla, it's your flotilla folks, right? You tell them that the council has said, hey, we're granting a charter and the ship number assigned by the charter is 1 or whatever it might be. And then who are the adult leaders for the ship? Is it and Bruce has already kind of skipped down to the filled in form, which I always think is a lot more fun to look at because he's got Doug Monroe as the charter org rep. So I don't know a lot of Medal of Honor holders that have ever been a COR that I'm aware of. So that's always fun to see. But we have committee chair, the various committee members. There can be more than 3. It's okay. If you have them, if you have a skipper and a mate, you want to put that in there. And then the youth, remembering that since the possibility they're under 18, especially for starting a new ship, you only want to use the last name and first initial or first initial and last name, whichever one you want to do. Okay. But you don't use both. Okay. That's standard procedure within Scouting America, which is an important part because we have seen situations where we have run into PA pieces that have come out from various districts, and I'm looking at full names of youth. So make sure that everybody knows that we have a particular way we do things, and we would prefer if we do it that way. So just a little bit easier that way. Any questions on these particular documents that we've talked about so far, other than the ones we've already answered, because we've answered a bunch?
Ron, this is Holly.
Yeah, Holly.
Ed was putting something in the chat because he actually works with a ship that is not chartered by the auxiliary.
Mhm.
So, so he said, that if that you still need to complete a charter agreement with the flotilla prior to submitting the request that's going to the DIROCs.
Yes, you have to complete all of your paperwork with Scouting America, even if it's an adoption. You have to complete all your paperwork with Scouting America first, and then you go to the letter of the chain of leadership and management. So just in the case of our ship number one that we're in the process of rechartering or becoming the charter partner for, we're going through the process of getting Michigan Crossroads Council happy with all the paperwork and all that good stuff. And then once we're done and they say, yay and verily you are, then we will submit. Because otherwise, what's the point? If you don't have something back from Scouting America that says you are, then there's really no good reason to go forward and request a Coast Guard charter for it. So my thoughts on that particular matter. Other questions? No other questions. All right. I have more questions. Okay. So we've talked about this. We've actually talked about the second piece that you walk into, which is what happens if it's an existing ship. We said you may have to use the adoption form. I've run into it now in 3 councils that I've worked with. I have not seen it elsewhere. So it may not be universal, but having run into it, I figured it was good to document. Just in case you're not surprised when you suddenly see a new form pop up that you were not expecting, which is kind of common, by the way. I have heard more scouting legends about various things lately. I had a commissioner trying to tell me that a committee member could not be made the COR of a new unit, of a unit that the charter partner's taking over. And I said, really? Where'd you get that from? Oh, you got to do a paper app. Got to. He said, let me check. So I reached out to my dear friends at Scouting America's IT department, and they said, no, you don't. So, like I said, there are lawyers running around all over the place, just like for us. So don't ever be surprised if that happens to you. But be willing to ask, if you get stumped by a question like that, send it up the line. I am sure that either most of my branch chiefs have heard these stories before, or I have. So, we can certainly help you get through those particular issues. The adoption form handle unit equipment considering the ship assets of the ship belong to the chartering organization. Normally, if you change the charter partner, the existing charter partner has no need to be keeping all that material anyway. They'll just send it along with the ship. I mean, that's been my experience. In all but one case, I can honestly tell you, in more years than I care to count, being an adult leader and especially as a commissioner, I've actually run into exactly one case in all those years where the charter partner, which was a Catholic church parish, refused to release the equipment because it belonged to them. And that was because they were going to start a trail of life to once they kicked out their other group. So that's why they wanted to keep the equipment. I won't say that. I actually looked at the priest when he said that, and I had some rather choice words for his choice of police. So, and then I left. I was stunned when I heard it. So, what can I say? Okay. We talked about existing ships already. Mentioned that. There's always some things you're going to run into with existing ships. I will say that. But hopefully they go pretty straightforward for you. It's working out very nicely for my flotilla because everybody seems to be really interested in getting involved. So I mentioned earlier the new pronged approach. Starting new units is great. Starting new units is wonderful. It's a fantastic thing. I love being able to say, hey, we got 5 new ships, or whatever it is. At the same time, the worst thing I ever want to talk about is when I lose ships. So what I am asking from each of you is to start checking in on a very regular basis with the aux sponsored ships in your district. Once a month, that's good. Make sure they're doing okay. Make sure that they're growing. I mean, ask the question of the skipper or the committee chair, whoever you're talking to. You don't really care. I like to talk to the on the ground boots more than I necessarily do to committee chairs. I'd rather talk to the skipper myself, but that's neat. Find out, are they growing? BSA actually, Scouting America has a really nice system nowadays where you can see all that stuff very instantly at one glance, but you have to be registered with Scouting America as a commissioner to be able to see that information. So that's why you ask the questions. Are they doing stuff? They, have they been on the water? Have they been fishing? Have they gone on a long cruise someplace? How active is the ship? How often do they meet? What are they doing? I know ships that meet once a month. I know ships that meet every week. And depending on where they're at, I mean, if you're down here in Florida, meeting every week kind of makes sense because you don't ever have you never have hard water here. Or if you did, something else froze over. But it's a lot easier for them to be more active. So because you get pretty nice weather all the time. So it works out for them. It's not always that way if you're up in Chicago or if you're up in Detroit or other fun places where we have hard water. But doesn't mean that they don't necessarily have activities. Ship 1 was actually just down visiting Coast Guard Station Belle Isle. And Mr. Slake, who's hanging out here with us, was actually one of the people who was taking him around the station. And so, it's nice that they have that. They get that opportunity to get down and see the station. They get an opportunity to interact with some of the coasties who are down there. Because you never know which one of these young persons are going to end up considering taking a career in the Coast Guard. Or they may go to the Coast Guard Academy, either one. Or they may go to the Naval Academy or the Merchant Marine Academy. I don't care. Sea service is a fantastic job opportunity for young folks, especially if they're willing to do that. So look at what they're doing. See if the Sea Scouts are advancing in rank. Ask the silly question. Hey, how many of your youth have earned their apprentice? That's actually the first one. If you've not seen it yet, I suggest you get yourself a copy of the Sea Scout handbook. The new one is just published, the 2025 edition. It's available on seascout.org, but it's a really good handbook. And that can help when you're trying to figure out things. Sometimes you're asking questions or being told something. You want to make sure it sounds right. Look in the handbook. Are their leaders trained? Have they taken advanced training? Sea Scouting happens to have its own advanced training program called Sea Badge. And Scouting itself, Wood Badge is kind of the standard for Scouts America or Scouts BSA and Cub Scouting and venturing. But see, oh, there it is. Looky there. There's the new man. But we have one called Sea Badge. We have actually done a Sea Badge course for auxiliaries. Last one was about a year and a half ago, I think it was, or was it 2 years ago? Bruce will remember. But we actually had everybody in the course was an auxiliary. And so a lot of our DSOs had the opportunity to take that training back then. A number of our staff members had the opportunity to take that back then. Do they have a regular cadence of their meeting? That may be once a month, it may be every week. But is it regular? It's not the skipper forgot, so he didn't show up with the stuff he was supposed to have tonight. Okay, and that can always be a problem. And what is the auxiliary participation with an aux sponsored ship? You would hope it's good, but make sure that's the case. make sure that the flotilla that's sponsoring them or the division that's sponsoring them is actually engaged with them. So hopefully we'll get another, that's an important piece of it, is to really make sure that you get a good feel for how the unit as a whole is operating. Okay. It sounds like a lot. Actually, once you kind of learn it, you figure out the pattern, it works pretty straightforward because most everything I've talked about in here, in this section, is actually in that Sea Scout handbook. So it's there are a lot of Sea Badge classes out there. If you've never taken one, I encourage you to do so. I won't talk about the number of you who on here who serve on staff uh, for various Sea Badge courses, right, Pat? Uh, I was gonna say, I think I've seen Pat in just about every course in the last year and a half. I'm not sure. Maybe more. Hard to say. So, always more fun that way. I don't know if you guys have been doing this already, but I'd love to hear some feedback on how it's going for you. Are you talking to your auxiliary sponsorships now? Do you have a cadence? You check on them once a month or once a quarter or something of that nature? How about Daniel? I'll ask you because you're actually one of the newer guys. So I'll ask Daniel.
Yes, we have in contact with our auxiliary sponsorships, and we have two auxiliary sponsorships that are in the works right now. One over in Fort Myers, another one down in Puerto Rico. So we're making strides, just chopping away at it. And so
Actually,
we're
hopefully
making,
three, Daniel. You've also got the one that's going in Titusville.
right, and then Titusville also, yes. So we're doing good down here in District 7.
Good. I'm glad to hear that you're talking to the units. Are the skippers kind of forthcoming, or are you talking to the skippers? Who are you talking to down there?
I'm
Just out of
I'm
curiosity.
I'm delegating that to my ADSOs and having them
Okay,
direct contact, and then they report back to me.
great. It works. I like it. Because you cover a lot of territory. So having the ADSOs out there uh, are very, very handy, especially if you've got a large geographic area. Daniel's geographic area goes from South Carolina all the way down South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, or most of Georgia,
Florida,
not
and
all,
Puerto Rico, and the Virgin
and Puerto
Islands.
Rico. Yes. Yeah. So D7 has a little territory they have. So it's always kind of fun though when you get a chance to talk to the different units if you get to do it yourself. Joyce, have you had a chance to do this yet? I think you're still on mute, Joyce.
And now I'm off mute. Sorry. It took me a second. Not a lot of it as much as I'm doing more direct contact with the units, but I don't have a whole lot of flotilla ships that I've contacted with yet.
Okay.
So I need to get on that and do a better job of it.
That's okay. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but it's one of those where it's like, I'd rather ask, are we getting it done? So, like I said, I don't want us to lose any of our ships.
Mhm.
And with this last recharter cycle, we actually lost a few. One died of natural causes, as I will say. It was an older ship, been around for about 15 years, 12, 15 years. So I wasn't completely surprised at that one. But we also had a couple other ones that left that I was completely surprised about. And then we've had units that had rechartering issues. And and in case you haven't heard this, I will tell you this now. Apparently, once a unit misses what originally, if they were December, it was a 90-day window. Now it's a 60-day window. They missed that 60-day or 90-day window in order to recharter. They drop off the system. but they're kind of kept in a little holding vat, as I would like to call it. And they got a little bit of time to try to get things straightened out before they lose all of their uh, tenure and such as a unit. So consequently, they're working to do that. And unfortunately, what has happened is there is a nasty bug running around the registration or registrar's tools, as they're called, in Minot Scouting. Most of us never knew those existed, so that's okay. But there is a bug in there that is now not allowing those units to come back online. So councils, wanting to make sure they got those units back online, are starting them as new units all over again. And of course, that also makes them lose their history, which is bad. I'm sure that, nobody really wants to forfeit 50 or 60 years worth of membership, or even 10 years of membership for that matter. So consequently, this is why I'm really asking for everyone to start checking on our own units, because I don't want them to fall off the map. Okay. DSA is working, Scouting America's IT group is working to fix the issue. And the note that I got last Thursday was that, they're just asking for patience while they try to get this done. So, it is one of those things we will have to keep an eye on. I'll be letting you guys know when I hear if it's working right again. I'll send out a note to everybody so they're aware. But it is something we're kind of keeping an eye on right at the moment. This affects ships all across the country. Quite a few of them, as a matter of fact. There's one right here, not far from me, as a matter of fact, auxiliary sponsored ship that was down in Palm Bay, Florida. It has fallen off the map, and they haven't been able to get back on yet. So hopefully that will happen soon. But it is one of those scenarios where we like to make sure that we keep an eye on all of those units and try to make sure that we're not trying to restart everything from scratch. Okay. Any other questions on that? No other questions.
I
All right.
Are you familiar with the document called Talking Points? It's in one of the resources. I came across it, and it's kind of a list of benefits on the partnerships between auxiliary and Sea Scout ships, and it was one of the better things that I found,
Mhm.
and I think everybody should see that and have access to that and share it as necessary.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. As a matter of fact, it's funny you should say that, because I don't know if you saw my note from earlier today. I had recorded a new video on engaging with non-auxiliary ships. And I actually referenced that particular document in that video. Unfortunately, my wonderful internet provider decided that that was when they were going to be doing something totally bizarre. I don't know what, but I got to listen to the audio on the video, which was totally out of sync and choppy as all get out. So I got to re-record it. So I'll be doing that this week, but it kind of was upsetting to me to learn I have to re-record it again. But I will do that this week and we'll get that done. And it was actually one of the documents I mentioned. I find that the document is very handy when you're working with recruiting youth, because when you can talk about the benefits that are available for them to join Sea Scouting, benefits in general, not just because they join an auxiliary sponsored ship, although there's lots of additional things that go on there, but just the general benefits of working with Sea Scouting in general and how much it can really influence them. Lots of people don't know little things like Sea Scout quartermasters. Not exactly like they're running around and they're a dime a dozen. Sea Scout quartermasters, after they complete basic training in either the Navy or the Coast Guard, will become E3s, which is a nice bump in pay from an E1. So, that's really nice that they can do that. They actually become, in the case of both services, a full seaman, as the position is known. But that is really wonderful for them. Normally, youth that go through Coast Guard Junior ROTC would get the same benefit. So, that's kind of nice. And surprisingly, I have found out recently that university University Auxiliary Program, UAP students. Yeah, I was not going to get that word out. The University Auxiliary Program students, if they complete certain programs within the auxiliary and then they decide to enlist, they can also, at the end of basic training, advance to E3 and rank. So there's some good programs out there for us. And a lot of those benefits that are in the talking points are very, very handy to have, especially when you're addressing various audiences. I usually have a copy of them with me, but I didn't bring them with me tonight. So surprisingly, I do have a copy though. And I encourage everyone to get a copy of them and keep a copy handy because they are very handy when you're trying to talk to youth, especially if that's not something you do all the time. So just always fun like that. Okay, it is 10:11, which is an hour and 5 minutes after we started. I don't want to keep anybody on longer than necessary. So if you need to go, you are welcome to do so. However, I do plan on talking a little bit about engaging with non-auxiliary ships, and DSOs know why I'm talking about that. So I am going to talk about that, and then we're going to take more questions. And I promise that I will get back to Mark with the where the heck is that annual fee at? No. So I will send that back to him. So if you need to drop, go right ahead. Feel free, and we'll go from there. Okay. Engaging with non-auxiliary ships. One of the big challenges that we have today is that we keep getting asked, well, we can provide data, and we do. We provide data every month about the number of hours that have been logged by auxiliaries working with the Sea Scout program, whether they are actually registered Sea Scouters or if they are our youth, or if they are auxiliaries who are just working with the Sea Scout program. We run those reports every month. However, what we don't always understand is, and it's a question we've been asked many times over the last couple of years in particular, is, well, what other ships are you participating with? So there's obviously a lot more Sea Scout ships out there than the 40 that we have sponsored by the auxiliary. So consequently, we have asked all of our DSOs to start recording on a quarterly basis, the first report being due at the end of the month, about what ships are you currently engaging with in your AOR. Now, one of the things I did, and I think I've told everybody this, but I'll just say it again, on the Sea Scout ships list, which you all have access to, read-only access to, in column W, I actually put the auxiliary district in there for everybody. I did that because I wanted to make sure that everybody knew where they belong, because there's always a few things that look strange. Like there are ships in Service Territory 16 of Scouting America, which probably should mean they're in D7, but they're not. They're in 8th Coastal. So, those things happen. And so you can't just take those things at face value. So that's one of the reasons why we put that in there, to make it a little bit easier for everybody to understand. And that way you could easily go over and just filter and look at the ones that are in your particular districts. And that should make your life a little bit easier. What we're looking for, and there's 3 columns on that checklist that the DSOs have. There is, and I always kind of like to refer to these as kind of progressing in Are you conducting events they're attending? So are you doing a safety at sea? There's going to be a wonderful safety at sea, as a matter of fact, that's going to be held here shortly at Camp. Well, not actually not at Camp Lejeune, but that's where it is, that general area. So consequently, uh, safety at sea is a wonderful thing. We have them in Baltimore, we have them in San Francisco, we have them down in Galveston. They're all over the country. So it's a fun event, and lots of Sea Scouts like to participate in them. So that's kind of level one, right? You're holding events and they're attending. You're doing some specialized training, they're attending, but you haven't really kind of started partnering with. That's step two. Step two says we're partnering with this ship. We're conducting regular training with them, whether that's motor safety training or if it's somebody who's taken a section of the old BS&S course and is now teaching knots or navigation, maybe using the weekend navigator course or something else. But how are you starting now to regularly engage with them? So that's a partnership. And of course, then the third one is this a ship that's auxiliary sponsored? There's only 40 of those, so it's not like we're expecting a bunch. But this is the information we're trying to get. We're being asked for this up our chain of leadership and management about this on a consistent basis. And so that's why we're going to start with our first selection of all the reports from all the districts at the end of this month. Do I expect we're going to cover every single Sea Scout ship in the country? I imagine not the first couple of times out. I see this as a report that grows. Okay, right? We may start off with 150. We may start off with 100. Whatever we start out with, that'll be our baseline. That's where we start from. And then we're going to look for that to grow because we want to make sure that we are engaging with all the Sea Scout ships. Because, hey, if a Sea Scout ship is being engaged by the auxiliary, it's a better chance that you could end up becoming the charter partner for that particular ship, which is right step three. So consequently, we hope that all of you will start thinking about that. I look forward to seeing your reports at the end of the month. I don't, I don't want to pressure anybody on the report. Give me the information that you have. Okay, that's really the base piece of it. Just give me the information that you have, and we will work with that information, and we'll report that up our chain of leadership. And as every quarter comes up, we'll come back with a new report for them. Okay, DSOs, you got that? Hopefully everybody's got that. Daniel's nodding his head. That's good. I like seeing Daniel nod his head. There's no pressure on this. Okay. Any other questions that we did not cover tonight that you wish to have answered? Silence is golden. Okay. We are a little bit past 10 o'clock, so I apologize to everybody. We're an hour and 13 minutes after we started. But hey, I'm glad we were able to get the information out. If you have any additional questions, something that keeps you up late at night, drop me an email. I'm more than willing to answer them. They answer lots of them all the time. You're more than welcome to reach out to me at any time. Okay?
Ron, I have one thing that I'd like to bring up if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. I was just going to go to you, so you're good.
Okay. As you know, we have a replacement for the memorandum of agreement that was signed back in 2018. It's now a letter of intent. And what the letter of intent says is essentially the same thing that the MOA said in 2018. The only difference being that 14 to 16-year-olds are not able to become auxiliaries. Now, because we now have a new document that basically allows us to go forward, the standard operating procedure for AuxScout will also have to be updated. Ron and I both have seen a draft of that, and I understand that it's essentially ready to go. I can tell you from past experience that it could get signed tomorrow, or it could get signed sometime just a day or two before Kingdom Come. I think it's probably somewhere closer to tomorrow than Kingdom Come, but that will be coming out. If people are wanting to know why the letter of intent doesn't provide all the ground rules for how we work with Sea Scouts, that's because the letter of intent and before it the MOA were never intended to do that. That's what the SOP is there for. Until the new SOP is issued, you'll continue to use the current SOP, which is linked to on the AuxScout.com website. I am really pleased to see a whole bunch of new district staff officers on this call, and I would urge you to ask Ron and his staff questions if you have them. And there's lots of training available linked to from both the AuxScout.com as well as on the AuxScout YouTube channel. If you're not sure what the answer is, go to Ron and his staff. They are the experts. I am frequently amazed by the number of air quotes experts out there on the AuxScout program who have no idea. But Ron and his staff do know the idea, and they'll be very happy to help you be successful. And that's, beyond that, I just want to say thank you all for what you're doing. We really appreciate your efforts. You are making a big difference, and it is seen by our senior leadership. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, if there's nothing else from anybody else, then I'm sorry that Alan didn't get to make it with us tonight, but that's okay. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I thank everybody for joining us tonight. And video will probably get posted from this meeting, will probably get posted, probably in the next few days. So you can find it on our YouTube channel, which I put the link to in the chat. All right. Night, everybody.
Ron, this is Alan. I was here how long ago? About 4 minutes
Oh, you
after
were here.
9.
You're just hiding on me. Okay.
But thank you for everything.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks.